Hello everyone, this is Blaziken TCG, and today guys, I'm going to be doing a matchup guide for Rotomless Snorlax. This is the list that I got 48th place at the Toronto Regionals with, and I just thought I would make a video to go over all of the matchups for this deck. I think it's still in an okay spot after Toronto. It's a slightly worse play now than it was at Toronto, but I still think it is a decent choice for any League Cups or challenges or anything like that you might be attending. So, this is the list I played. This is like a more turbo Pokestop build, that I've been playing. I think this list, in my opinion, is the best way to play the deck right now. I think this exact 60 is optimal. However, there are some other ways to play the deck, such as with the Clef Keys. And there are some builds as well that do not play Pokestop. There's just like a regular Rotomless Lax build without the Pokestops. I think that build is weaker overall. However, that does seem to be the more popular build right now. So I'm going to be going over some of the most popular matchups and explaining how to play against those matchups. So starting off with Regidrago V-Star. This is currently the best deck in the format. And this is one of the matchups that I would recommend playing a lot of games against, just because this deck is very popular right now. So the main game plan in this matchup, so really there's only 3 game plans in, there's only 3 win conditions really with this deck. Either Retreat Lock with Snorlax, or you can set up a board state where they cannot get through either Mimikyu or Cornerstone. Those are really the only 3 win conditions this deck has. So your main win condition for this matchup is going to be Retreat Lock. They have several Pokemon that they cannot attack with. So the main ones you're going to be wanting to hit off the flutes are Kyurem, Squawkabilly, Cleffa, or Radiant Charizard, because all 4 of those Pokemon cannot efficiently attack. Pheasantipede is also a good one to hit. However, if you hit the Pheasantipede off the flutes, they can still hit for 100 damage, so you're going to most likely need to trap something else as well. So ideally, you will hit one of these 4 Pokemon off the flutes. The best one to hit is, of course, Kyurem, because one of the main lose conditions in this matchup is for them to set up a Trifrost play and then take out multiple Snorlaxes at once. So if you can hit the Kyurem off the flutes, you basically just win on the spot. However, if you hit either Cleffa, Radzard, or Squawkabilly, you can also trap those as well. Now, in the case that you do not hit any of those 4 Pokemon, and they manage to discard all of their Pokemon, or discard all 4 of those, you can begin to spread energies across their board. So, Pheasantipede and Teal Mask Ogerpon are great Pokemon to gust up, because they can deal damage, but it takes them 3 energies to attack, and they don't do enough damage to knock out a Snorlax. Pheasantipede can never knock out a Snorlax in one hit, and Teal Mask Ogerpon needs 4 energies to knock out a Snorlax. And if they put 4 energies on the board, then that's kind of a win for you anyways. So you can begin to keep gusting up different Pokemon and forcing them to attach all of their energies, and then eventually you'll be able to gust something like a Regidrago, and they will not have enough energies to attack with. Of course, you're going to... This is also one of the matchups where spamming Airy and Misfortune Sisters is incredibly important, because you want to be hitting their outs to Snorlax, Cologne Switch, and Prime Catcher, as well as any rods and SERs, and then Energy Switch. Those are very valuable resources for them that you want to be hitting. So now moving into Charizard, this is another pretty even matchup. I think that Regidrago is right around a 50-50 matchup, and Zard is also around a 50-50 matchup if they play Cologne. So kind of taking an even matchup into the two best decks right now. Now, only about half of Zard lists right now are playing the Canceling Cologne. If they do not play Cologne, the matchup is 80-20, I think. I think that Zard is a very good matchup if they do not have the Cologne. However, if they do have Canceling Cologne, the matchup is around 50-50 to maybe slightly unfavored, maybe around a 45-55 matchup. So, I see a lot of players in this matchup try to go for like a Snorlax win condition, and that is not how you should play the matchup. You should try to set up a win condition by just having as many cornerstones. Well, you can only have one cornerstone in play at a time because there's only one in the deck. But ideally, you want to just force a board of cornerstone and Mimikyus. So start off by ideally having 2 Mimikyus and cornerstone in play, and then no more than 1 Snorlax. If you do start Snorlax, it's fine to have in play, but you just don't want to have more than 1. And just start spamming Airy and Sisters to try and discard candies, rods, stretchers, and if they play it, Cologne. Those are the important resources you're trying to discard, because the way you lose this matchup is if they can Dusknoir multiple times and Cologne your Ogerpon. And then usually you are not going to be setting up a Snorlax win condition. However, it is possible. In Top Cut of my League Cup a few days ago, I hit a Zard, and he got to a board state where he had Cleffa on the bench, and Thornton and Turo were both discarded, so I was able to move into a Snorlax game plan to just retreat lock the Cleffa. So that is possible, however, that rarely happens in the matchup. You are almost always going to be setting up a win condition by basically getting down to a point where they cannot knock out any more cornerstones and Mimikyus. Also, a play that you'll want to look out for in this matchup is if you have 2 Mimikyus and cornerstone in play, they could potentially go Dusknoir, kill a Mimikyu, Thornton into a Duskull, Rare Candy, Dusknoir, Night Stretcher back the Dusknoir, Rare Candy, Dusknoir, kill the other Mimikyu, and Cologne, kill the Cornerstone. And even if they still have prize cards left, you have no more Pokemon, so you would lose the game. So if it is possible that they can go for this play, you will want to bench a Snorlax just to prevent them from going for this play. And yeah, that's pretty much just the Zard matchup. Another pretty 50-50 matchup. Then we have the Raging Bolt matchup. This matchup, I believe, is 90-10 as long as you get set up. I think that as long as you set up against Raging Bolt, this is an unlosable matchup, unless you just get super unlucky. So first of all, if you hit Squawkabilly or Radiant Greninja off the flutes, you can just win by Retreat Lock. They only have 2 carts and Prime Catcher, so you can just Snorlax, and yeah, you can just go for a Snorlax game plan and continuously gust those up, and then eventually they get stuck. However, ideally in this matchup, they are going to set up a board state with 3 Ogerpons, 2 Raging Bolts, and Slitherwing, so that then we cannot try to bench lock out of Squawkabilly or Greninja. And if they do, if they go for that board state, and you are not able to get one of these 2 Pokemon out, there are 2 options you have. The first is you can Snorlax, gust an Ogerpon. Once they attack, gust the other Ogerpon, and the second Ogerpon is now a liability. They are going to have to switch cart into Raging Bolt and discard the grass energies, so they can end up attacking with the other Ogerpon. So that is a strategy you want to go for if they are already down multiple switches and maybe 1 or 2 energy retrievals. However, a more reliable game plan in this matchup is the Slitherwing can knock out, it can attack twice before it knocks itself out. So what you can do in this matchup is have a board state with just your 2 Mimikyus, and basically just continuously gust the Raging Bolt EX, force them to either burn a switch or retreat 3 energies to attack with Slitherwing, and then after every second Slitherwing attack, they knock out the Slitherwing. So you can, while you can buy time with the Raging Bolt EX, if it gets stuck for a turn or 2, you can spam Aryan Sisters and try to hit the Night Stretchers, and then eventually their Slitherwing knocks itself out enough times so that they cannot recover Slitherwing, and they lose to Mimikyu. This is an especially strong play if you know that their build does not play Iono, because they have no way to disrupt your hand. So you basically just get to sit there with all your Night Stretchers, all your Counter Catchers, and then you can just loop Mimikyu, continuously gust Raging Bolt, and also just loop Aryan Sisters. So this matchup is incredibly favored for Snorlax, I think. Like I said, 90-10 matchup. Really, I think the biggest way you would lose this matchup is if you just get donked. Which you do have a pretty decent chance of actually getting donked with this list, because, I mean, you have 7 Pokemon and then 4 Nestwells. So it is possible you just pass with 1 Snorlax and get donked. So now we're going to go over the Guardy matchup. So this is a matchup that a lot of players think is just an auto loss for Snorlax, because they can set up a board state with Gardevoir, 3 routes, Drifloon, and Klefki, and then pretty much nothing can get trapped. If we trap the routes, they can attack with Teleportation Burst to move it back to the bench, and then if we keep gusting it, we just eventually run out of Gust, and they get an attack. And if we try to trap Klefki, Klefki turns off the Snorlax's ability, so they can just Psychic Embrace to it and retreat. So, in theory, this matchup should be pretty bad. However, if they're trying to set up a board state where they can just auto-win, they end up having a lot of cards in their hand. And Xerosic can sometimes just cook them. Another play that they'll sometimes try to go for is if they have routes in play, they can attach Bravery Charm, Psychic Embrace 4 energies, and evolve to Kirlia. They'll only do this typically once all of their other Pokemon are discarded. They'll typically bench lock with Guardy, 3 routes, Drifloon, Klefki, and then discard their monkeys, discard Screamtail, Mawile, Manaphy, Greninja, Fez, just discard all those Pokemon, and then start knocking out their own routes. And then eventually, they'll, in theory, get to a board state where the only Pokemon they have in play are Gardevoir and Drifloon, and everything else is discarded, and you just lose. So, if you let them get to that board state, yeah, just go ahead and pack it up. There's no way to win from that scenario. However, in order for them to go for one of these bench lock strategies, they're going to end up having a lot of cards in their hand, and you can Xerosic, force them to discard a lot of resources such as Charms, Rods, even Turo, Palpad, stuff like that. And, yeah, and then it's possible. I've also noticed sometimes in this matchup you can just win by just waiting for them to deck out if they draw too many cards. Even if you don't set up a win condition, they sometimes just get to a point where they have so few cards in hand and deck, you can sometimes just deck them out with an Iono or something. So, of course, your best strategy in this matchup, most lists don't play the Palpad, most lists only play the 1 Turo. So, of course, if you hit 2 Pokemon that can get trapped, the ones you want to have out are Monkey, Manaphy, Greninja, Mawile, or Fez. So if you can hit 2 of those Pokemon starting off, you kind of just win. as long as they don't play the Palpad or second Turo. So this matchup's kind of one of the harder matchups to play. It kind of just depends on what the Gardevoir player does. Then we have Lugia. So Lugia is arguably one of the deck's worst matchups. This matchup, I think against a Lugia player that knows the matchup, I think this matchup, like, realistically, you maybe have a 10% chance of winning. The matchup is incredibly bad because they have the 4 Jets, and most everything in the deck can attack. So, really, the main win condition in this matchup is hit Squawkabilly off Flutes, and hope they either don't know the matchup and they discard Iron Hands, or hope that you can bench lock out of Iron Hands. Because the issue with the Iron Hands, the reason you do not want this in play, a lot of players say, oh, this Iron Hands only does 120 for 4 energies, we don't want him in play, we'll just discard him. However, even if you hit the Squawkabilly off Flutes, my list has no charms or anything like that. So, they can just motivate twice, and then I have to penny every second turn, and as soon as I don't find a penny, they jet into hands and take 2 prizes. So, against Lugia, I think if the Lugia player knows what they're doing, and their prizes aren't awful, like they didn't prize Legacy, and it's like one of the top prizes or something, I think this matchup is very bad. However, it is also possible to just win games if the Lugia player doesn't know the matchup. Like, for instance, if you can get Iron Hands out and trap it, and if they do something like attach Legacy to hands, and if they have, like, Wellspring or Lumineon in play, you can just trap those Pokemon. If they already have the Legacy on the board, that is another potential line that you can take in this matchup. Then we have Cloth. So this is another one of those matchups where a lot of newer players just look at Cloth and say, they have Pecharunt, this matchup is an auto loss because Pecharunt provides them infinite switch outs, so we can never set up a retreat lock win condition. And the truth about this matchup is, you're not going for Snorlax at all in this matchup. So if you look at my list, we play 2 vacuums. So they only have 3 booster capsules. So what you do in this matchup is set up a board state where you only have Mimikyus, ideally, have both of your Mimikyus in play, and they essentially have to booster capsule to take a knockout every turn. Because if they booster capsule, their only ways around Mimikyu are Cloth and Baby Pecharunt. So they have to booster capsule in order to use either of those attackers, and they can then take a knockout on Mimikyu. So, what you do in this scenario is you vacuum away the booster capsule, and you're going to have to Silene loop the vacuum, so you kind of have to hope to get some lucky coin flips with Silene in order to win this matchup. And your win condition is vacuum 3 times. And also if they attack with Cloth, the Cloth stays poisoned, so you have to find a Gust as well, or else they can attack without having booster capsule. So this matchup is slightly favored, I would say. Yeah, I think this matchup is slightly favored. Your win conditions just vacuum all the booster capsules and then Mimikyu wall, and then once you get to a point where all their booster capsules are vacuumed away, they're going to be stuck hitting for 20 with Cloth, so you have to penny every 4 turns, which is very doable for our deck. Pretty easy, actually, as long as you just didn't burn too many resources. Which, sometimes that does happen in this matchup. This is one of those matchups where you have to draw super aggressively through the deck, and sometimes you have to play very aggressively with your resources to win this matchup. Because it's kind of just like a very odd win condition, just vacuum looping. And also, sometimes Iono can just brick you, and you really can't afford to whiff for more than 1 or 2 turns in this matchup. So you have to end up thinning a lot of cards out of your hand just to avoid Iono into a dead hand, since you do kind of need a lot of cards to pull off your combo for every turn. So this matchup overall is, I would say, 60-40. Then we have Thornspult. This is another very good matchup for the deck. We have a couple win conditions here. By the way, before I get into this, I just want to add one more thing to the Cloth matchup I forgot about. A lot of lists play Klefkis instead of vacuums. You might be wondering why I play vacuums. The only reason I play vacuums instead of Klefki is because it has more utility in the Pokestop build, because you can Pokestop, vacuum away Pokestop, and then put another Pokestop, and you get to use 2 Pokestops in one turn. However, if you're not playing a Pokestop build, Klefki is definitely a better tech for this matchup. Just play 2 of those and gust the Brute Bonnets every turn. Eventually, they just get stuck. Now, anyways, on to the Thorns Pult matchup. This is another very favorable matchup for Snorlax. This is just a super good matchup because you have a couple win conditions. Your first win condition is, this is your primary win condition. If you are able to hit 2 Thorns off the flutes, you kind of just win the game. Because, especially for my list, since I play the vacuums, this is another matchup that the vacuums are much better than Klefkis into. Because if you hit 2 Thorns, they only have 1 Turo, so they can remove 1 Thorns from play, but the other Thorns is just going to be stuck in play. So then you can set up a board of 2 Mimikyus and continuously gust the Thorns. They'll attach Booster Capsule, you can vacuum that away, and then you can keep gusting Thorns with a board state of only Mimikyus and force them to retreat 4 energies every single turn. And then eventually they run out of energies, and either their Thorns is just trapped in the active spot and no way to retreat at all, or you can start gusting up stuff and spreading their energies around. However, if they try to go for a play where they, like, bench lock with 1 Thorns, sometimes they'll try to, like, trolley early, get, like, 1 Thorns, Radzam, and then 4 Dreepies. In that case, you can just keep gusting up different stuff and retreat locking them. Just try to spread their energies around. That is another win condition as well. Also, if you hit Toadskull off the flutes, that's kind of just almost a guaranteed win, because they basically have to Turo that out of play, so they just essentially don't get to play with a Turo for that game. So yeah, overall I think this is like an 80-20 matchup. Very losable, but I think as long as you play well, it should be a fine matchup. Then we have Goldango. Goldango is arguably the deck's best matchup. They have very limited ways around, like, Mimikyu and Cornerstone, so you can kind of just set up a board state of, like, 2 Mimikyus and Cornerstone and basically just play the matchup the exact same way as the Zard matchup. However, Retreat Lock is also a more viable win condition. A lot of lists don't play Thornton anymore. This was just the 3rd place from, like, Sacramento list. A lot of lists don't play Thornton or Turo anymore, so if you hit something like Greninja or Manaphy off flutes, sometimes you can just retreat lock them. However, if you don't hit anything that can be retreat locked, you can just play the matchup just like the Zard matchup, and they eventually run out of ways out of Mimikyu and Cornerstone. The only way you can really lose this matchup is if they get Togekiss super early, and just really high roll with Togekiss. If they can go, like, Togekiss, attack Mimikyu, flip heads, kill another Mimikyu, flip heads, and then Cologne your Cornerstone, yeah, you lose, but they kind of just have to get really lucky to win the matchup. It is possible to get high rolled against this matchup. However, the matchup's still pretty favored. I think this is another 80-20 matchup. Then we have Archelodon. This is one of the reasons why I think Snorlax is a weaker play after Toronto. Archelodon is essentially an auto-loss matchup. They have 2 Turos, Thornton, Palpad, and Scoop Up Cyclone. So they have 5 ways, well, 6 ways, because they can Palpad back 2 Turos, and Thornton, and Scoop Up Cyclone. So 6 ways to remove a Pokemon from play. This matchup is basically just an auto loss. That is kind of one of the bad things about Snorlax. The matchup is, the matchups for Snorlax are kind of polarizing. Like, basically just based off whatever your opponent's playing, you either have a good chance of winning or it's going to be very, very hard. So, yeah, I think the only way you can really win this matchup is if the Archelodon player just plays too aggressively with their resources, and you can maybe find a win condition with either Mimikyu or Snorlax. I don't know, it's kind of like a matchup where you just have to hope they don't know the matchup, and they're kind of maybe less experienced with Archaludon. And it is possible to win by, like, gusting up different stuff. You can potentially, like, gust a Dialga or Archaludon with Mimikyu in the active spot and force them to retreat into Duraludon. Maybe run them low on energies that way. This matchup, realistically, you're probably not winning this matchup, though. It's kind of just one of those matchups where you just have to adapt to what your opponent's playing and just hope you can find a line. And then the last deck I'm going to be covering is any sort of moon deck, either Ancient Box or Turbo Moon. If they play Pecharunt, this matchup's kind of just almost unwinnable. Your only win condition if they have Pecharunt is either bench lock them out of Pecharunt and then retreat lock. You can potentially, against Turbo Moon, bench lock them. Well, you can't even bench lock out of a Mimikyu answer because they have Calamity Storm to just knock Roaring Moon out. So really the only win condition against these moon decks is either bench lock out of Pecharunt or hope they prize it. So there you have it, guys. That is, I guess, you could consider this a Snorlax Masterclass. I'm not entirely sure how well I did with this video, so I'm kind of new to this, so if you liked this video, I'd appreciate it if you just, like, leave a comment. If you don't like it, just comment and tell me what I did wrong and how I can do better next time. And if you like these types of videos, I might be doing more in the future. So yeah, that's it. Goodbye.